Chapter 1. Locked in the metallic clang of the security gate echoed through the empty corridor like a guillotine falling. Andrew's head snapped up from his book, the words on the page suddenly meaningless. That sound? He knew that sound. He was on his feet and running before his brain fully caught up, sneakers squeaking on the polished floor as he rounded the corner toward the main entrance. The glass doors gleamed under the car park lights, and beyond them, nothing. Empty spaces where cars had been. Dark pavements stretching into the night. No. He grabbed the door handle and pulled. Locked. Obviously locked. He pressed his face against the glass, scanning for any sign of life. A security guard, a cleaner, anyone. The parking lot stared back, indifferent and deserted. Andrew's heart hammered against his ribs. How had he lost track of time so completely? He just wanted to finish the chapter, and then the next one. And somehow, hours had evaporated. His phone was dead. Of course it was dead. He'd been using it as a flashlight earlier to find that book on the bottom shelf. He turned slowly, taking in the vast emptiness of the shopping centre. The usual sounds, chatter, footsteps, the distant ringing of cash registers were gone, replaced by an eerie quiet punctuated only by the hum of ventilation and the burble of the central fountain. Emergency lighting cast everything in a strange half-glow, making the familiar corridors look like a film set after everyone had gone home. Panic fluttered in his chest, tightening his throat. He was stuck here all night. His parents would worry, call his phone over and over, getting no answer. He should find a security office, a phone, something, but as his eyes adjusted to the dimness, he noticed something. The stores weren't fully locked down. The department store at the far end of the corridor, its security gate, was only halfway down, leaving the entrance accessible. Through the gap, he could see the interior rows of clothing racks marching into the depths of the building. The fluttering in his chest shifted, transformed into something else entirely. Something that made his palms sweat for a different reason. He was alone. Completely, utterly alone. Andrew walked toward the department store without making a conscious decision to do so, as if his feet had their own agenda. The half-open security gate seemed almost inviting, and he ducked under it with the bizarre feeling that he was stepping through a portal into another world. The store stretched before him, larger than he'd ever realized. During the day, it was always crowded, people rushing past with shopping bags and screaming children. Now it was silent and still, a cathedral of commerce waiting in the darkness. The emergency lighting created pools of shadow between the racks, giving everything a dreamlike quality. His eyes traveled across the floor, past menswear, past home goods, until they landed on the section he'd always skirted around, never lingering too long, never letting his gaze settle. The girls' section. Even from here, he could see the colours, soft pinks and bold yellows, the shimmer of sequins catching the light, the gentle sway of a dress on a mannequin. His throat went dry. In all his daydreams, in all the times he'd imagined what it might feel like, he'd never pictured having an opportunity like this. Hours. He had hours. No staff to give him strange looks, no shoppers to whisper, no friends to ask uncomfortable questions, just him and the clothes and the night stretching ahead. Andrew took a step forward, then another. His reflection caught in a nearby mirror, a skinny guy in a faded Nirvana t-shirt and worn jeans, dark hair falling into his eyes, looking absolutely terrified and absolutely thrilled at the same time. He glanced back at the security gate behind him, at the empty centre beyond. Then, he looked at the girls' section again, at all those possibilities hanging on racks and folded on shelves. Okay, he whispered to the empty store, to himself, to the night. Okay. And he walked forward into the colours and the softness and the dreams he'd never quite let himself fully imagine. Chapter 2. First steps. Andrew's hands trembled as he approached the first rack of tops. Up close, the array was overwhelming. A riot of patterns and textures that seemed to multiply the closer he got. Stripes and florals, solid colours and graphics, fabrics that looked soft as butter, and others with a slight sheen that caught the emergency lighting. He reached out, then pulled his hand back, reached out again. His fingers finally made contact with a soft cotton tee, and he almost laughed at how his heart was racing over something so simple. It was just a top, just fabric and thread, but it wasn't, and he knew it. The top he'd touched was cream-coloured with pink and white horizontal stripes, the kind of casual piece he'd seen 1,000 times on other people. He pulled it off the rack and held it up. It looked small. Would it even fit? The tag said medium. He wore medium in men's. Surely it couldn't be that different. With one more glance around the empty store, still deserted, still just him, Andrew grabbed the hem of his t-shirt and pulled it over his head. The air was cool against his bare skin, raising goosebumps on his arms. He bunched up the striped top and pulled it over his head quickly, before he could overthink it. The fabric slid down his torso, and immediately he noticed the difference. It was fitted, actually fitted, following the lines of his body instead of hanging loose. The sleeves hugged his biceps. The neckline sat wider and lower than he was used to, exposing his collarbones. The material was incredibly soft, almost silky, and it felt right, like his skin had been waiting for this specific texture. Andrew turned to find his reflection in a nearby mirror and froze. The person looking back at him was familiar, but transformed. The stripes created the illusion of curves at his waist. The fit emphasized how slim he was rather than drowning his frame. The neckline made his neck look longer, more elegant. He touched the fabric, running his hands down his sides, feeling how it moved with him. Oh, he breathed. Just that. Oh, he turned slightly, watching how the stripes wrapped around his body, lifted his arms, and saw how the sleeves shaped around them. It was just a top, just a simple cotton top, but it felt like discovering a new language he'd always been meant to speak. But he wasn't done, not even close. The skirts hung on a rack nearby, and Andrew drifted toward them like a moth to a flame. There were so many styles: pencil skirts, A-lines, maxis, minis. His eyes caught on a pleated athletic skirt in navy blue with a subtle shimmer woven through the fabric. It had a sporty look to it, practical, with built-in shorts underneath. He picked it up with shaking hands, feeling the weight of the pleats. This was it. This was the moment. He was actually going to do this. Andrew fumbled with his belt buckle, fingers clumsy with nerves and excitement. His jeans dropped to the floor, and he stepped out of them, standing in the middle of the store in just his boxers and the striped top. The absurdity of it might have made him laugh if his heart wasn't trying to hammer its way out of his chest. He stepped into the skirt carefully, one foot then the other, and pulled it up his legs. The fabric whispered against his skin, a sensation entirely new and entirely wonderful. The waistband reached his waist, and he fastened the button and zipper with trembling fingers. It fit perfectly. Andrew took a tentative step, and the pleats swished against his thighs. He took another step, feeling the movement, the way the fabric flowed and bounced with each movement. He'd never experienced anything like it. The freedom of it, the lightness. His legs felt unencumbered, the air cool against his skin. He spun experimentally, watching in the mirror as the skirt flared out and then settled back against his legs. The navy fabric caught the light with each movement, that subtle shimmer winking at him. The pleats created gentle lines, and the sporty style somehow made the whole outfit look intentional, coordinated. Andrew stood still, staring at his reflection. The striped top tucked neatly into the skirt's waistband. His legs he'd always thought were too skinny, too awkward, looked good. They looked right in the skirt, the hem hitting just above his knees. "Okay," he said aloud, his voice sounding strange in the empty store. "Okay, this is really happening." He walked back and forth in front of the mirror, unable to stop watching the skirt move. Each step brought that delightful swish, that gentle bounce of pleats. He jumped slightly and laughed as the skirt flared. He'd seen other people in skirts his whole life, had watched the way they moved, and now he understood it from the inside. The smile on his face felt like it might split his cheeks. His hands kept smoothing down the skirt, touching the top, confirming that this was real, that he was really here, really wearing these clothes, really feeling this incredible sense of, what was it? Rightness? Joy? Relief? All of it at once. He caught sight of another rack across the way, dresses, dozens of them, and beyond that, more skirts. A whole section of jeans that actually looked like they might fit his frame, sweaters in soft pastels, a display of accessories with scarves and belts and things he didn't even have names for yet. The night stretched ahead of him, full of possibility. Andrew took one last look at himself in the mirror, at the striped top and navy skirt, at the person he was seeing clearly for maybe the first time, and grinned. "Let's see what else there is," he said to his reflection, and he headed deeper into the store, the pleats of his skirt swishing with every step. Chapter 3. The exploration begins. The girls' section proved to be a treasure trove Andrew hadn't anticipated. Much of the clothing here was brasher, more playful than the understated pieces he'd started with. graphic tees with cartoon avocados wearing sunglasses, hoodies emblazoned with glittery slogans, jeans in colours he'd never imagined denim could be. He pulled a tee off the rack almost at random, white with a smiling cartoon character and girls' rule, in pink lettering. It was ridiculous. He loved it immediately. The skirt came off, replaced by high-waisted jean shorts in a pale wash that actually fit his hips properly, sitting where they were supposed to instead of sliding down. He'd never realised how much time he spent hitching up his regular jeans until he wore a pair that just stayed put. The tee and shorts combo made him look like he was ready for a summer festival. He snapped an imaginary photo with his dead phone, already composing the caption he'd never actually post. Next came a crop top, pale yellow with tiny embroidered daisies on the hem. He'd never shown his midriff in his life, and standing there with a sliver of stomach visible felt daring and slightly scandalous and absolutely delightful. He paired it with black athletic leggings from the activewear section, marvelling at how they held everything in place while still being so comfortable. No bunching at the knees, no sagging at the ankles, just smooth fabric that moved with him when he stretched experimentally toward the ceiling. He said, checking his reflection. The outfit shouldn't have worked. Crop top and leggings seemed too simple, but somehow it did. He looked like someone heading to a yoga class, or maybe getting coffee after the gym. Normal, casual, comfortable. A rack of sundresses called to him next, and he found himself drowning in options. Floral prints in every colour combination, imaginable solid tones, patterns that looked like watercolour paintings. He grabbed a coral-coloured one with a fitted bodice and a skirt that flared out from the waist. The changing room was right there, an actual changing room, but the store was empty and he'd already changed on the floor multiple times. The dress slid over his head and settled into place. It had a zipper up the back that took some contortionist manoeuvring to fasten, but he managed it. When he turned to the mirror, the skirt swirled around his legs, much fuller than the athletic skirt had been. He spun faster and laughed as the fabric flew out in a circle. This was nothing like the clothes he was used to. His regular wardrobe was about disappearing, about taking up as little space as possible. These clothes demanded space. They moved and flowed and insisted on being noticed. He tried a denim jacket over the dress, oversized and covered in colourful and delicate embroidery. The combination of feminine dress and denim jacket felt like a conversation between two parts of himself. Then he swapped the dress for a yellow sundress with thin straps and a smocked back, kept the jacket, and decided he looked like he belonged in a music video. The women's athletic section was a revelation of a different sort. He'd expected it to be similar to men's workout gear, just sized differently. Instead, he found himself confronted with an explosion of colours and patterns he'd never seen in the men's section. Leggings with geometric patterns, sports bras in lavender and mint and coral, running shorts with built-in compression shorts underneath. He changed into a matching set. Leggings in a deep purple with a subtle geometric pattern and a coordinated white sports bra. The leggings were high-waisted and compressive, holding him in a way that felt supportive rather than restrictive. He did a few experimental squats, then jogged in place, watching himself in the mirror. Everything stayed exactly where it was supposed to. No riding up, no shifting around. "This is engineered," he said aloud, impressed. He'd always thought athletic clothes were athletic clothes, but clearly he'd been missing out on some serious design innovation. A display of swimwear caught his eye, and he hesitated. That felt like a bridge too far, somehow. Too revealing, too vulnerable. But then again, he was alone, and he'd already crossed so many bridges tonight. He grabbed a one-piece in a retro style, high-necked, with a keyhole cutout at the chest and high-cut legs. In the mirror, it looked like something from an 80s workout video, and he found himself posing ridiculously, hands on hips, chin up. He changed back into the purple leggings and sports bra, then wandered into the misses section. The clothes here were more polished, more adult. Blouses with buttons and collars, slacks with sharp creases, dresses that came with matching blazers. He felt like he was trying on potential futures, the person he might be in an office somewhere, wearing a burgundy sheath dress and kitten heels he didn't dare try the heels. Walking was enough of a challenge. A wrap dress in a navy blue with white polka dots practically called his name. He'd watched enough fashion shows on TV to know how wrap dresses worked in theory, but the practice was trickier. It took 3 tries to get the tie right, so the dress actually closed properly. When he finally managed it, though, the effect was worth it. The wrap style created a V neckline and emphasized his waist in a way that felt impossibly elegant. He paired it with a cream cardigan, soft as a cloud, and decided he looked like he should be having brunch or attending a garden party. Neither of which he'd ever done, but he could imagine it now, sitting at a table with mimosas and pastries, laughing with friends, wearing this exact outfit. The lingerie section loomed in the corner, and Andrew approached it with considerably more trepidation than he'd felt about anything else. This felt more intimate, somehow, more personal. But curiosity won out. He examined the displays, bralettes in lace and cotton, camisoles, things with names he wasn't entirely sure of. He settled on a simple cotton bralette in soft pink, no padding, just fabric and support and matching panties. In the bathroom, he drew the line at changing on the sales floor for this. He tried the bralette on under the sports bra. It felt nice, different, not constraining, but present, a gentle awareness. The panties provided surprising comfort levels he hadn't anticipated. When he emerged, he caught sight of himself in a full-length mirror and paused. The purple leggings, white tank, the hint of pink straps visible at his shoulders. He checked for VPL and saw no such fashion faux pas. He looked like 100 other people he'd seen at the gym or grocery store or coffee shop. Completely unremarkable in the best possible way. He went back to the racks with renewed energy, pulling items almost at random. A tie-dye t-shirt dress that hung loose and comfortable. Skinny jeans in black that actually deserved the name skinny. A pleated midi skirt in forest green that swished when he walked. A hoodie in soft pink with a kangaroo pocket that he immediately filled with his hands. Each piece taught him something. The dresses showed him how fabric could move independently from his body. The structured clothes demonstrated the power of tailoring. The athletic wear proved that comfort and style weren't mutually exclusive. The casual pieces revealed that effortless looks took more effort than they appeared. Getting a t-shirt to tuck just right into jeans was apparently an art form. He found himself in front of a clearance rack, pulling off a sequined top that probably cost more than he'd ever spent on a single item of clothing. It was utterly impractical, silver sequins that caught every bit of light, meant for parties he'd never been invited to. He put it on anyway, pairing it with simple black leggings. In the mirror, he sparkled, literally sparkled. He moved his arms and watched light cascade across his torso. It was absurd and flashy and completely wonderful. He did a little dance, watching himself shimmer, and laughed at the sheer ridiculousness of dancing alone in a department store at midnight, wearing a sequined top. But that was the thing. He could be ridiculous here. He could try on clothes that didn't match, could pair athletic shorts with dressy tops, could wear things in combinations that would never work in real life. There were no rules, no one to impress, no judgment. The freedom of it was intoxicating. He changed into a floral maxi dress that pulled at his feet, too long, clearly meant for someone taller, but beautiful anyway. Then a romper in coral that made him look like he belonged at a beach resort. Then back to the athletic section for another pair of leggings. These ones with a colourful abstract pattern. Time became elastic, stretching and contracting. He had no idea how long he'd been at it when his stomach growled loudly enough to echo off the store walls. Andrew looked down at himself, currently wearing grey joggers and a fitted purple hoodie, and realised he couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten. Food. He needed food. The shopping centre had a food court, and presumably the convenience store would have something edible. But first, he took one more look around the department store, at all the clothes he'd tried, at the many different versions of himself he'd discovered in the past few hours. "Thank you," he whispered to the empty store, to the racks and mannequins and mirrors. Then, still wearing the joggers and hoodie, because why not? Because they were comfortable. Because he headed out into the mall to find something to eat. The pleats and sequins and florals could wait. He had all night, and he was hungry for food now, not just for the dreams hanging on racks and folded on shelves, though he'd definitely be back for more of those dreams after he ate. Chapter 4. Midnight Feast. Soul-fed the convenience store's automatic doors opened with a cheerful chime that seemed absurdly loud in the silent mall. Andrew grabbed a basket and wandered the aisles. The refrigerated section yielded a pre-made chicken Caesar wrap, a fruit cup, and a bottle of cola. He added a bag of crisps and a chocolate bar because, why not? Normal rules didn't seem to apply tonight. He settled at one of the food court tables, the ones with the moulded plastic seats that were never quite comfortable. The fountain burbled away in the centre of the court, its water features lit from below, with slowly changing colours, blue to purple to green. He unwrapped his sandwich, and ate slowly, legs crossed, watching the light show. The mall at night had a strange beauty to it. Without the crowds and noise, you could actually see the architecture, the high ceilings with their geometric skylights, the way the corridors curved and intersected, the careful placement of plants and benches. It was like seeing a stage set without the actors. His reflection gazed back at him from the darkened window of a closed cafe. Purple hoodie, hair sticking up at odd angles, face smudged with what might have been makeup from one of the testers he'd experimented with briefly. He looked tired but content, like someone at the end of a good day, rather than in the middle of a strange night. The chocolate bar was overly sweet, exactly what he needed. He chased it with the last of his cola and stood, stretching. His body ached pleasantly. He'd been walking and changing and moving for hours, but he wasn't done yet. The mall stretched out in every direction, and he'd only explored one store. A boutique near the fountain caught his eye. Vintage Rose proclaimed the sign in flowing script, with a window display featuring mannequins in retro-style dresses. He'd walked past it 100 times before and never gone in. It always looked expensive and intimidating, the kind of place where staff watched you with suspicious eyes. Now, though, the door was unlocked and the lights were on low. He pushed inside. The store smelled like lavender and old books, a combination that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. The racks were organised by era, 50s swing dresses, 70s bohemian pieces, 90s grunge. He drifted to the 50s section first, running his hands over full skirts and fitted bodices. A dress in mint green caught his eye, tea-length with a fitted top, cap sleeves, and a full skirt that screamed 50s prom. He pulled it on over his head, struggling briefly with the side zipper before getting it fastened. The skirt alone probably had 10 yards of fabric in it, all structured with layers of tulle underneath that made it stand out from his body. He spun, and the skirt flew out in a perfect circle, suspended in the air for a moment before settling back. He spun again, faster, laughing as the world blurred and the skirt became a mint green wheel around him. This was what those old movie scenes were about, this feeling of the fabric defying gravity, of taking up space and not apologizing for it. The bodice fit snugly, almost uncomfortably so, and he realized there was probably supposed to be some kind of undergarment situation he was missing. Still, the overall effect was charming. He looked like he'd stepped out of a yearbook from 1955. He tried on a 70s maxi dress next, burnt orange with a bold geometric print and flowing bell sleeves. It was the opposite of the structured 50s dress, all loose fabric and movement. He felt like he should be at Woodstock or protesting something. The sleeves alone were an experience, fluttering when he moved his arms, practically begging him to make dramatic gestures. A rack labelled cocktail attire offered more sophisticated options. He selected a little black dress, because every fashion magazine he'd ever flipped through said you needed one, and shimmied into it. It was simpler than anything else he'd tried, just a sleeveless shift dress that ended mid-thigh. But the cut was impeccable, following his lines in a way that made him look taller and more pulled together than he'd ever managed in regular clothes. He found a pair of low heels nearby, and carefully stepped into them. Walking was an immediate challenge. His ankles wobbled, and he had to take small, careful steps to keep his balance. He made it about 10 feet before deciding that heels were a skill that required more practice than one night could provide. He kicked them off and went back to barefoot, which he'd been for the last hour anyway. A section of blouses and skirts let him play mix and match. He paired a cream silk blouse with a high-waisted burgundy pencil skirt and felt like a 1940s secretary. Then a denim shirt with a flowy floral skirt for a country and western vibe he didn't know he could pull off. A black turtleneck with a plaid miniskirt gave him school head girl energy, and he posed pretentiously, chin up, imagining himself discussing philosophy at some elite academy. The jumpsuits were trickier. He found a navy one with wide legs and a halter top that took 5 minutes to figure out how to put on correctly. Once he managed it, though, he understood the appeal. It was an entire outfit in one piece. No coordinating, no worrying about tops and bottoms matching, just zip and go. A section near the back offered vintage-style swimwear, and he was drawn to a high-waisted bikini in cherry red with white polka dots. In the small changing room, he tried it on, feeling far more exposed than he had in the one piece earlier. The top tied behind his neck and back, and the bottoms sat high on his waist, showing off his stomach and legs in a way that felt vulnerable and bold simultaneously. He looked at himself in the changing room mirror, really looked. His body was slim, somewhat androgynous, without the pronounced curves the clothes were designed for, but they still worked. Maybe not in the way they would on someone else, but in their own way. The red and white patterns drew the eye, the high waist created the illusion of proportion, and the overall effect was playful, fun. He changed back into regular clothes, this time selecting a soft grey shirt dress from the casual section and leggings, and continued exploring. A rack of cardigans in every colour became an opportunity to try them all. Mint green over the grey dress, then mustard yellow, then a rich plum colour that he decided was his favourite. Athletic dresses were apparently a thing. He found an entire section of them, designed for tennis or golf or just looking sporty while being comfortable. He tried a white pleated tennis dress with a built-in sports bra, bouncing experimentally and marvelling at how everything stayed in place. Then a polo-style golf dress in pale pink that made him feel preppy in a way his actual wardrobe never had. He found himself back in the department store, this time exploring sections he'd skipped before. Professional wear, blazers and dress pants, pencil skirts and structured dresses. He tried on a charcoal pantsuit and stood taller, squaring his shoulders. He looked competent, adult, like someone who went to meetings and had business cards. A section of formal dresses beckoned, full of sequins and satin and tully. He selected a gown at random, deep blue, floor length, with a fitted bodice and flowing skirt. It was ridiculously over the top for wandering around a closed mall, which made it perfect. He added a glittery shawl and walked through the store like he was on a red carpet, waving to imaginary photographers. The girls' section offered graphic sleep sets, matching shorts and tanks with cute prints, avocados, donuts, little clouds with faces. He changed into a lavender set, with smiling moons and stars, and it felt like the opposite of the formal gown, comfortable and silly, and meant for actual sleeping, which his body was starting to remind him was a thing humans needed. But not yet. He wasn't ready yet. He found a jean jacket covered in patches and pins, some official band merch, others just random phrases and designs. He layered it over a sundress in yellow with white daisies, creating a contrast between sweet and edgy. Then he swapped the dress for ripped jeans and a crop top, and the jacket suddenly looked punk instead of playful. A display of workout sets in matching colours caught his attention, the kind where the sports bra, leggings, and jacket were all designed to coordinate. He tried a sage green set, and it felt like armour and comfort at the same time, like he could run a marathon or just sit on the couch, and either would be acceptable. He was in the middle of trying on a denim pinafore dress when he caught his reflection and stopped. Not because of how he looked, though the dress was admittedly cute, but because of the expression on his face. He looked peaceful, content in a way he couldn't remember feeling before. All night he'd been trying on clothes, but somewhere along the way, it had become more than that. Each outfit was like trying on a possibility, a version of himself he'd never let exist in daylight. The athletic wear said he could be active and energetic. The professional pieces said he could be competent and serious. The playful graphics said he could be fun and unguarded. The formal gowns said he could be elegant and dramatic. They were all him, could all be him, if the world worked differently. He changed into one more outfit, a simple combination of a soft pink sweater and black jeans, both from the women's section, both fitting in ways his regular clothes never had. He looked at his reflection, and the person looking back seemed more complete somehow, more whole. The skylights above were starting to show the barest hint of pre-dawn grey. He'd been at this for hours. It must be nearly 5 a.m. The stores would start opening in a few hours, security would arrive, and this strange bubble of possibility would pop. But not quite yet. Andrew headed back toward the food court, toward the fountain, with its shifting colours. He sat on the edge, trailing his fingers in the water, and let himself exist in this in-between moment, still in women's clothes, still in the empty mall, still in this space where he could be whoever these clothes let him become. He wasn't ready to let it go. Not yet, but dawn was coming, whether he was ready or not. Chapter 5. Dawn and discovery. The sky beyond the skylights had shifted from black to deep purple, then to a bruised grey that promised sunrise. Andrew watched the colour change reflected in the fountain's water, the mechanical rainbow lights still cycling through their programmed sequence, even though no one was there to see them. He should change back. His original clothes were folded on a bench near the department store. That faded t-shirt, those worn jeans, the person he'd walked in as yesterday evening. They seemed like artifacts from someone else's life now, but he didn't move yet. The pink sweater was soft against his skin. The black jeans fit without gapping at the waist or bunching at the ankles, and for these last few minutes, he wanted to hold on to that. A sound echoed from somewhere deep in the mall, a mechanical whir followed by a distant clunk. The heating system kicking in, probably, or the automatic coffee machines in the food court starting their morning routines. The building was waking up whether he was ready or not. Andrew stood, his bare feet cold on the tile. He'd abandoned his shoes hours ago, somewhere between the boutique and his 4th or 5th trip through the department store. He should probably find them. He walked slowly through the mall, not hurrying, taking a different route than he had before. A bookstore, the one where this whole thing had started, sat dark and quiet. Through the window, he could see the chair where he'd been reading, the stack of books on the side table that some employee would have to reshelve. It felt like looking at a photograph of a past life. Next door, a phone store's display models glowed behind the glass. His parents, they'd be frantic by now, probably called the police, definitely called his friends. When the mall opened and staff found him, there would be questions. Are you okay? How did you get locked in? Were you scared? He'd have answers ready. Yes, fine, fell asleep in the bookstore, wasn't too bad actually. All true in a way, just not the whole truth. His shoes were exactly where he'd left them, tucked under a bench near Vintage Rose. He picked them up, but didn't put them on yet, carrying them as he made his way back to the department store one last time. The place looked different now. During the night, it had been a wonderland, infinite and magical in the dim emergency lighting. In the growing dawn light filtering through the skylights, it was just a store. Racks of clothes in organised sections, price tags dangling, sale signs promising 30% off. The spell was breaking. He picked up his t-shirt and held it for a moment, feeling the difference between its loose cotton and the fitted sweater he was wearing. Both were just fabric. Both were just clothes. But they weren't. He knew they weren't. Andrew looked around the store one more time. He'd spent hours here, trying on possibilities, and now he had to decide what to do with what he'd learned. He could change back, walk out when the doors opened, and let this night become just a story he'd tell himself sometimes. A strange, wonderful aberration that didn't connect to the rest of his life. Or, there was a clearance rack near the back, marked down items in odd sizes. He walked over, still barefoot, still in the pink sweater and black jeans. A cream-coloured cardigan caught his eye. Simple, soft, on sale. He checked the tag. £12. He had that much cash in his wallet. Next to it, a pair of grey joggers in an adjacent section, marked down because they were an unpopular size. Also £12. He had just enough. His hands moved before his brain fully committed to the decision. He grabbed both items, found his wallet in his discarded jeans pocket, and walked to the customer service desk. There would be a self-checkout somewhere. He'd seen people use them during regular hours. The machine was easy enough to figure out. Scan, bag, pay. The receipt printed out with a cheerful chirp. £24 for 2 pieces of clothing that probably wouldn't fit the body the computer expected them to fit. Andrew carefully cut the tags off with scissors he found at the desk, folded the cardigan and joggers, and tucked them into his backpack with his wallet. Then, he changed back into his original clothes, the faded shirt, the worn jeans. In the mirror, he looked like himself again, the before self, the public self. But the backpack was slightly heavier now. He heard voices, distant but growing closer. Security, probably doing their morning rounds before the stores opened. He grabbed his shoes, finally pulled them on, and headed for the main entrance. A security guard, an older guy, tired-looking, was unlocking the glass doors as Andrew approached. He looked up, startled. Jesus, how long have you been? You were locked in. The guard's hand moved toward his radio. Yeah, sorry. I was in the bookstore, fell asleep reading, woke up, and everything was locked. Andrew tried for sheepish and embarrassed, which wasn't hard to fake. He was embarrassed, just not for the reasons the guard would assume. The guard studied him, then seemed to decide he wasn't a threat. You okay? Need us to call anyone? My phone died, but I'm fine. I just walked around. It's not like there was much else to do. Walking around all night in a locked mall. The guard shook his head. Kid, you could have slept on a bench. Andrew shrugged. Too wired, I guess. The guard radioed something to someone, probably reporting that they'd found him. Then he pulled the door open fully. Come on then. Let's get you out of here. Your parents are probably freaking out. The early morning air hit Andrew's face as he stepped outside, cool and damp, smelling of car exhaust and distant breakfast somewhere. The car park was still mostly empty, just a few early employee vehicles pulling in. His phone was dead, but there was a payphone near the bus stop. Did those even work anymore? He'd have to try. His parents would still be up, probably, waiting for news. But before he made that call, Andrew sat on the bench at the bus stop and pulled out his backpack. The cardigan and joggers were there, cream and grey, soft to the touch, real, tangible, proof that last night had happened. He'd spent hours trying on dreams, and now he had just 2 items to show for it. It seemed almost comical. All that time, all those possibilities, and he'd walked away with a cardigan and joggers. But they were a start. The sky was much lighter now, proper morning, arriving with the gradual inevitability of sunrise. Traffic was picking up on the road beyond the car park, people heading to work, starting their ordinary days. Andrew zipped his backpack closed and stood up. He had no plan. Not really. No roadmap for how to turn last night's freedom into something that could exist in daylight. The cardigan and joggers might sit in his backpack for weeks, months maybe, worn only when he was alone in his room late at night. That was possible. But they might not. There was a bus coming. His bus. The one that would take him toward home and explanations and the worried faces of his parents. He stood as it approached, backpack slung over one shoulder, heavier than it had been yesterday. The bus doors opened with a hydraulic hiss. The driver glanced at him, bored, waiting for him to board or not board, indifferent to his internal crisis. Andrew stepped on, paid his fare with change from his pocket, and found a seat near the back. Through the window, he could see the mall in the distance, its parking lot filling with more cars now, the stores inside preparing to open for another ordinary day of commerce. But it wasn't ordinary. Not for him. Not anymore. He pulled out his phone, even though it was dead, just to have something in his hands. When he got home, he'd endure the lecture about responsibility and checking the time and keeping his phone charged. He'd apologise, promise to be more careful, accept whatever consequences they decided on. And then, when things calmed down, when he was alone in his room late at night, he'd take out the cardigan and joggers. He'd try them on in the dark, maybe, or with just his desk lamp for light. He'd see how they felt in his space, in his real life, not in the magical bubble of an empty mall. And maybe, just maybe, that would lead somewhere. Andrew leaned his head against the window, watching the city wake up around him, and let himself smile. Just a small one, private, meant for no one but himself. The night was over, but something else was beginning. And that, he thought, was enough for now.